Can you guys hear me in the back? You all right? Okay. Almost too loud, maybe. So I've shared this before with you guys. Many of you know this. My story is that when I was a junior in high school, my dad, he moved us from Ocean City, New Jersey, and he took us to Buffalo, New York. If you don't know Ocean City, New Jersey, as I've explained before, literally if I went out the side door of my high school and looked up, there was a Ferris wheel from me to the church away. This massive Ferris wheel. I worked on the boardwalk. It was an awesome experience. I loved it. I enjoyed it, right? But my dad felt that we were being called into full-time missions, and so he moved us to Lockport, New York, right outside of the Buffalo area, and he started working at Global Outreach Mission. And just recently, I had this awesome experience that was like so weird in so many ways. Have you ever had all your worlds collide? Like, have you ever seen somebody from a past time or it almost seems like a past life, and they're in the same place? And so you have like your current life and you have a past life, it feels like, and they're at the same place and you're like, what is happening? That's exactly what happened, because just recently, my dad, he was made the 7th president of Global Outreach Mission. It's a mission organization, and so that was awesome. We got to go to this installation dinner, and I didn't know who all was coming. I wasn't 100% sure who he had invited. And so I get there, and there are people from my whole life. And when I mean my whole life, I mean my whole life. I remember there were people there, and this lady, she's telling the story of how I used to roller skate. That's how long ago you know it was. So I was roller skating. I would roller skate down to their house, and I would ask for if their kids could come out and play street hockey with me. And like that, they were there, and they were talking about this story. My youth pastor was there, and he was there, and he's talking. And then my dad, one of my best friend's fathers, he was there because he's been good friends with my dad for a really long time. And so the church I grew up in, I was 2 weeks old when I went to this church, and people that I knew from there, from 2 weeks old, are there. And then my boss, my first boss I ever had when I moved to New York, was there. So I have my childhood here, I have my high school years here, and then a whole bunch of people that worked with my parents that I've known for almost 20 years, and they're all here in one place. And then a couple that means a lot to our family from our church was also there. So I had way past, I had some past, and I had present, and all mixed together in the same room. And so have you ever had that when you recognize, like, I feel like I've lived multiple different lives, all these different things converging at one time. And I recognize that sometimes I think we, as humans, we have these different phases that God takes us through. We have these different times in our life, right? Like some of you, you're in a whole different world now. Maybe you're about to go into middle school, or you're about to go into high school, or maybe you just had a brand new kid, or you just got married, or you're just about to get married, or maybe you just had another kid, or maybe you're sending a kid away and they're going off to college. Maybe you're sending your last kid off to college. Or maybe you're having grandkids or great-grandkids. I don't think anybody's having great-great-grandkids, but maybe they are. And so we have all these different phases of our life, right? And they all kind of converge, and they're all so different. And if you sit there and you think about the phases that your life has taken you through, and the path that you've walked through, it's interesting because they're all so different, aren't they? Like who you were as a middle schooler, I hope isn't the same as when you were a high schooler, which I hope isn't the same as you were when you were a first-time parent, right? Like you don't want that to be the same you. You don't want middle school Ben to be your pastor. You don't. You don't. It'll be horrible. We'll just play basketball every day. Like that's all we'll ever do. We'll talk about Jesus, but we'll do it while playing basketball. We have these phases, and they're all different, and we're like different people through them. And so as I was reading through Acts, and I'm looking at this, something jumps out at us that is really cool and really interesting, right? And maybe you're going to say, Ben, this is not interesting, but it is to me. So you have to flatter me by doing it, all right? So I want you to practice with me. This is a Greek word. This is a Greek word. I know what you're thinking. Ben, are you getting bougie on us? No, I'm not. You want to know how I can tell you I am not? Because to be able to pronounce it, I had to literally write it out this way. Capital D for D, right? And then heir, H-I-E-R. And then comb, C-O-M-B. And then the letter I. So it's D-heir-Comb-I. Can you say that? D-heir-Comb-I. D-heir-Comb-I, okay? Perfect. You guys are way better than me. And now you can go home and say, I learned one thing from Ben in my whole life. D-heir-Comb-I. And so we have this word. This word shows up a lot, and it shows up in our text today. We're going to be in Acts 8, and we're going to look at verse 4 right now. And I want to talk to you about D-heir-Comb-I. Verse 8, chapter 8, verse 4. It says, now those who were scattered went about preaching the word. And so this D-heir-Comb-I is that little phrase right there, went about. Went about. And it means to traverse, or to come, or depart, or go about, go abroad, go everywhere, go over, go through, go throughout, pass over, pierce through, travel, or walk through. It's very all-encompassing, isn't it? But really, what it's used for the most is to say somebody is passing through. Somebody's going through from one place to another. And so if you, don't turn there, but if you wanted to, there's a ton of this word that's used throughout the book of Acts in reference to missionary work that's being done. This D-heir-Comb-I, it's used throughout. In Acts 8, verse 40, it says, but Philip found himself at Azotus, and he passed through, D-heir-Comb-I, he preached the gospel to all the towns until he came to Caesarea. And so I was thinking about that with D-heir-Comb-I, the passing through, and the different phases of life that we go through. Some of us, right now, some of you, you're passing through a phase of life, and you might hate it. Maybe you hate the phase of life you're in. Maybe you love it. But whatever it is, it's a phase of life, and it's usually they're pretty short. They don't last that long, these phases, right? And so I thought about this. How is God using us as we are passing through these different phases of life? As you step out and you embark on your first real job, or as you are having a child, or as you're going to school, and as you're going throughout high school and you're just wishing it away, or you're in college and you're looking forward, or you're single and you're looking ahead to be married, or wherever you are, maybe you're married and you're looking ahead to kids. It seems like throughout our lives we're always looking ahead until it's too late, and then we look back, right? You talk to people who are older and they're always going to tell you, don't wish away that phase of life you're in. Don't wish away the fact that your kid wakes you up at 4 o'clock every single morning. And they need you, and they want you, and they're screaming at you. And they're like, Dad, can I have a granola bar? Because that's what I'm woken up with almost every day. Dad, can I have a granola bar? And it's like, it's 4 o'clock. How are you hungry? What are you doing? 4 o'clock, right? And they say, don't waste it away. But we do. We run through our lives, and we're always looking forward to the next place we're heading. And we forget that God has us passing through the phase that we're in for a reason. Can you look back at a time in your life and recognize, hey, there was this place that I was in. I just wanted to be done. I just wanted to be over. And now looking back, I see I either missed opportunities, or God used that time to prepare me, or God had me passing through because I wasn't quite ready to do what He had me to do on the other side. I can see that in my life. I see times I thought I was ready for something. And looking back, it's like, thank you, God, didn't answer my prayers. Because I thought I was ready. I was trying to push and get my way to where I wanted to be. And I recognized by the time I got there, if I had got there when I wanted to be there, I would have never been ready. And so that passing through time, that D-heir-Comb-I, is so important for us. I don't want you to waste it. Because all of us are in these different phases of life. And they all have positives and they all have negatives. Some of them are great. I know Chloe, my oldest, she always wants to be older than she is. And when you're in high school, you want to be done high school. And Chloe and I will have conversations, and she'll be like, I can't wait till I'm an adult when no one can tell me what to do. And it's like, oh, funny. Let me tell you. By then, they can tell you what to do, and you know they shouldn't, or they're wrong, and you still have to do it, right? It's so different. But we all want these phases and these times to be done, and we don't recognize that what God is doing is He's using them, or He's using you to meet people as you are D-heir-Comb-I, as you are passing through. And so keep that in mind as we move throughout this service here today. The second thing I want to talk about is that God has you heading somewhere. Because a lot of times when we are in these passing through phases, doesn't it seem like you're stuck? High school for me was the worst one. I will always go back to that. Hated high school. I was like, this is such a waste of time. Like, I just want to be done so I can go to college, so I can go do real life. Like, high school was an enigma to me. I just didn't like it, didn't appreciate it, and honestly didn't take advantage of the situations that I had myself in. And so I was so busy trying to waste it away, so busy trying to get to the other side, that as I passed through, I missed so many opportunities. I look back on high school, and I have a lot of regrets. Because there's so many opportunities that I missed. Because as I was passing through, I didn't have my eyes open for why God had me, where I was, around the people I was around, and why He had me for the duration that I needed to be there. I just wanted it to be done. And because of that, I missed so many opportunities. And that's my fear for you. My fear for you is that as you're always looking ahead to the next place that you're going, that you won't have your eyes looking around to see why God has you where you are right now. Because that waiting stinks, doesn't it? It's not fun. When you know where you want to be and you can't get there yet, that's not a fun thing. And so why is it that our phases of life sometimes can last these years? Why does God have you where you are right now? Why does God have you at that first job? Why does God have you single and you wish you were married? Why does God have you newly married and you don't have kids yet? I'm sorry, I keep touching that with my hand in my pocket. Why does He have you where you are? We have to be able to ask ourselves that question. Why does God have me where I am? Why does God have me around the people I'm around? And what does He want me to do while I'm here? While I'm just D-heir-Comb-I, passing through. And so look at Acts 8, 1 through 3 real quick. We're going to be moving through Acts 8 a little bit. But it says, and Saul approved of his execution. And there arose on that day a great persecution against the church in Jerusalem. And they were all scattered throughout the regions of Judah and Samaria except the apostles. Devout men buried Stephen and made great lamentation over him. But Saul was ravaging the church. And entering house after house, he dragged off men and women and committed them to prison. That is what sets up Acts 8:4 that we just read. Now those who were scattered went about, what? Preaching the word. That's what set this off. The thing that had them passing through was a horrible experience. And that horrible persecution that they faced, they got up and the D-heir-Comb-I, they passed through all these different places. And as they did, they had their eyes open, looking for what God had them to do in the place that He took them. And isn't that amazing? Because honestly, that's not me. That's not my nature. I would much rather be upset. I would much rather pause and ask God questions. God, why am I going through this? If I'm trying to serve you, like we talked about last week. That's more human nature. We want to know why. We don't like it. We want to complain. And instead, they had their eyes open, looking for, as they ran for their lives, and they were passing through from town to town, looking for safety. They had their eyes open, looking for opportunities to be used of God. Is that you? Is that me? Can we get ourselves to that place? So that no matter where we find ourselves in life, no matter what stage it is, no matter what we are D-heir-Comb-I, whatever we are passing through, can we get to the place where our eyes are always looking for what God will have us to do? Because I believe that there are people out there. I believe that there are people out there that need you. Look at Acts 8, verse 5. Philip, this is as he's D-heir-Comb-I, as he's running through, passing through here. Philip went down to the city of Samaria, and he proclaimed to them Christ. How was the relationship between Samaritans and Jews? Good or bad? Bad, right? Not good. They considered them half-breeds. The Assyrians had taken people from all over the world and they brought them into this place of Samaria. And so they intermarried these people from all over the world with Jewish people that were in Samaria. So that's where the tension comes from, because they weren't pure-blood Jews. And so a lot of those people brought with them their own ideology, their own gods, their own cultures, their own traditions, and even some of their own languages. And so you have this mixture of these people here in Samaria. And where does this persecution take Philip? Directly to a place that otherwise would Jewish people have gone to evangelize? Most likely not. Even though that was our commission, right? Go everywhere, and Samaria is on that list. Jerusalem, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth, which ironically is often considered Ethiopia in their time, and we're going to see why that matters. And so you have these people that are able to, because he had to run, and because he was passing through, that phase of life brought him to a people group that otherwise most likely wouldn't have had the opportunity to hear the truth. And so some of you are in that same place. Some of you are in places that you don't want to be, or maybe you even want to be there, but you haven't had your eyes open for these opportunities of why God has you there. And so God has you around the people that he has you around for a reason. Because some of them otherwise would never hear about Jesus. We're living in that kind of world now. Do you know that? We're living in the kind of world. Pastor Alex, I know, during one of the prayer walks, he had an encounter, and there was a young man who was at the park right here in Wyoming. And he asked him, he said, "Hey, how can I pray for you?" And the guy said, "What's that?" He didn't even know what prayer was. That's the kind of world we're living in now. Where are they going to hear that if it's not from people that believe? And as the time goes on, and as times get worse and worse, do you think they're going to hear more about Jesus or less? Less. And so why does God have you around the particular people that he does? Most likely because there's some people there that otherwise would never hear about him if they didn't rub shoulders with you. That's what happened here with Philip. Verse 6 through 8. And the crowds with one accord paid attention to what was being said by Philip, when they heard him and saw the signs that he did. For unclean spirits, crying out with a loud voice, came out of many who had them, and many who were paralyzed or lame were healed. So there was much joy in that city. And I wrote this down because I was thinking, if I was a 75-year-old Baptist pastor, I have a great line that I could have used here. It says, God has you right where you are, because you can be gospel sharers and joy carriers. That's rough, isn't it? But that's exactly what I saw there. I was like, he took with him the gospel, and he took with him joy. And I was like, man, if I had a PowerPoint, I'd put that up, because that sounds hilarious. But it's exactly what he has them doing. He has these people here for a reason, to bring to them the gospel. And as the gospel comes in, it instills and it brings with them this joy as things are being changed in Samaria. That without the persecution, that without Philip's D-heir-Comb-I, his passing through of this city, it would have never happened. And so you are in situations right now because there are people that need you in their lives because they need your passing through in this time. And now, is it crazy to think about? But we're about to see why that matters. Because so many of you are involved in so many things. You have your jobs, you have school, you have 4-H, you have these clubs, you have these different activities, you have sports, you have mom groups, you have, dad groups don't exist. We just shoot stuff together. And you have all these things. You have these opportunities where people come together. And God has you where you are for a reason, because there are people that need you. And I know that because we see what's about to happen here as we move further in chapter 8. Look at verse 26 of chapter 8. Verse 26. It says, Now an angel of the Lord said to Philip, Rise and go toward the south, to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. This is a desert place. And so God is about to have Philip have an encounter with a man. And on the way there, he says, hey, you're going to take this road, and it's a desert place. I want to read you a quote that explains what's going on here with this desert road. It says, Luke's footnote that this is a desert road is showing the strangeness of the Spirit's command to Philip. There were two roads from Jerusalem to Gaza, and the Spirit commands Philip to take the one that was seldom used. It is also possible to translate this Greek phrase where it says toward the south to at noon. That rendering would make the divine command to Philip all the more unusual and perplexing, because at noon the road would be deserted of travelers because of the heat. And so what he's saying is this question, this ask of Philip is for him to leave a spot, an area where ministry has been done, where the gospel has come through, where people are changing, where a whole city is changing, where joy has been brought to. And he's asking him to walk away from this ministry and go to a dirt road where there's this one guy who maybe at noon on the road less traveled, he needs to meet Jesus. And so some of you are in a place in your life where you're like, God, this makes no sense. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm at this job, or I don't know why I'm at this school, or I don't know why I'm with the people I'm with, or I don't know why I have these connections, or I don't know why. I don't know why you brought me this way, God. I don't know why I'm here. I feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere. I feel like there's nothing going on. I feel like I'm lost and it's unimportant. It'd be easy to feel that way, because if I was Philip, I would think that. You want me to leave this great ministry and go find one guy on a dirt road? This is like 100 miles away. And so he gets up from this ministry and he pursues this one guy that God has determined that he wants to meet Jesus. And so I thought about that. Are you good? Am I okay? If God has us passing through some times in our life that just don't make any sense, because he's going to use it to reach one person. Because honestly, that's hard, isn't it? Now, if you said 1,000 people, yeah. Give me some weird times, God. Send me to some weird places. Let me see what happened in Samaria happen in my life, because I was in a weird place at a weird time. But one person. So Philip goes, and he goes down this dirt road, most likely and very likely at noon, at the hottest time, and he's in pursuit of this one person that God is in pursuit of. And look what happens, verses 27 through 31. And he rose and went. This is Philip. He obeys. And there was an Ethiopian, a eunuch, a court official of Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who was in charge of all of her treasure. And he had come to Jerusalem to worship, and was returning, and seated in his chariot, and he was reading the prophet Isaiah. And the Spirit said to Philip, go over and join this chariot. So Philip ran to him and heard him reading Isaiah the prophet, and asked, do you understand what you are reading? And he said, how can I unless someone guides me? How can I unless someone guides me? And he invited Philip to come up and sit with him. And so one of the things I notice when I'm reading through Acts 8 is as the persecution comes, the people that God then reaches with his disciples who are passing through this focus of ours, they're all people that wouldn't have normally had many opportunities to see Jesus. So there's Samaritans, there's Simon the magician that we looked at last week, and now there's this Ethiopian eunuch who God also is reaching. It's an odd assortment of people. Because he's Ethiopian. He's a foreigner. He's not Jewish. He's a foreigner. And not only is he a foreigner, he's a rich foreigner. He's a rich foreigner. He's wealthy. He's high up. And it says that he's a eunuch. And there's some debate about this, but it was very normal back then for this to happen. I'll read you the quote from it. It says, it is not certain whether he was physically a eunuch. The term was also used to speak of government officials who had not been emasculated. He was likely an actual eunuch, though, since Luke uses both eunuch and court official to describe him. If that were true, he would have been denied access to the temple, and therefore been unable to participate fully in the Jewish worship services. Furthermore, he would not have been allowed to be a full proselyte to Judaism. He would have been limited to the status of a God-fearer, one who attended the synagogues and read the scriptures, but stopped short of becoming a full proselyte. And so what we're setting up here is there's this very unlikely convert. And what most likely happened is this guy, he goes down to Jerusalem to find this place to worship in pursuit of knowing God. And it's very likely that he got there and was turned away from the temple, or at the very least wasn't allowed into the inner parts of the sanctuary here because of his physical condition. I know what you're thinking. You're like, Ben, I did not expect to be talking about eunuchs at church today. Surprise. And so it's an important part of our story because it sets it up, because it demonstrates where he would be. He's this foreigner. He's in pursuit of this foreign God, this Jesus, this God that he's in pursuit of, and he's looking at it from his perspective, and he's seeing Judaism as an answer. But even his answer of what this religion is that will bring him what he hopes to have, he's not good enough. He doesn't measure up to it. And so he can only have part of it. And so can you imagine feeling this way? What if this guy had been all the way there at the temple? He had been there and he gets denied access. And so he instead is reading this. And he's reading it by himself. And so that's why when Philip says, do you know what you're reading? He says, how can I? How can I unless somebody tells me what it means? Because to me it looks like he said, I was reading this. And no one will tell me what it means. Because I don't fit into the ideology of what that religion says I should. And then God sends Philip from this place of ministry where he had all this success down a dirt road at noon to meet this guy. I wonder how many people around you are looking for answers, but we don't have our eyes looking around to see who needs Jesus. I wonder how many of your coworkers, of your friends at school, I wonder how many people on your sports teams or in your clubs are looking for hope, and that they're not measuring up to it. And so they're looking at this idea of this hope that this world can offer. But even for us as Americans, the more we look around at what's going on, I think the less hope we see outside of Jesus. And so there's people around you in your area that you are currently passing through, that God is having you rub shoulders with because they have 8 questions and you have the answer. And his name is Jesus. That's exciting to me. Because how fun would that be if Jesus said to you, because I know what you'd be thinking, because I'm thinking the same thing, then that's not fair. An angel showed up and said, go talk to that guy. If an angel showed up to me and said, go talk to that guy, I would do it. Valid. I understand that argument. I get it. But that is our job that we've been given, to go and make disciples. And so who around you has God put in your vicinity to have you passing through, passing by, rubbing shoulders with, because they have questions and you know the one in whom their soul is looking for? Because isn't it easy to get stuck passing through? Because think about it when you're traveling. When you're traveling, all the other stuff on the way there, it's nice. Sometimes I'll say to my kids, hey, look at that tree. You've never seen that tree before. And they're like, Dad, hey, look at that tree. You've never seen that tree before. Right? But you're just passing through. That's not the goal. The goal is to get where you're going. And so a lot of us, when we're in these times, we're in these phases, we're trying to get out of them. And so we don't have our eyes looking around for the people that God has placed in our life strategically so that we can be able to give them the hope that their soul is craving for. That's exciting to me. That's exciting to me, that idea that God has me right where I am so that I can have the opportunity to meet them where they're at and offer them this hope that we're looking for. Acts 8:32-33. We're almost done. Now the passage of the scripture that he was reading was this. This matters a lot. Like a sheep, this is out of Isaiah 53, by the way. Isaiah 53. Like a sheep, he was led to the slaughter. And like a lamb before its shearers is silent, so he opens not his mouth. In his humiliation, justice was denied him. Who can describe his generation? For his life is taken away from the earth. So if you're Philip and God has sent you to go share with this Ethiopian about Jesus, this verse matters a lot, doesn't it? Because he's reading it and he's saying, what does this mean? And Philip gets to say to him, this means that even though you were in pursuit of God and you didn't find him where you were because you went to religion looking for your answers and you got there and religion says you don't measure up. You're not who we're looking for. You don't fit the description. You're not good enough. You physically don't qualify. The best you can have is you can say, I believe in this God, but you can't follow us in celebrating or worshiping this God. Instead, Philip gets to go and he gets to tell this guy that the person that you're reading, his name is Jesus. And he is God with skin on. And he came down to this earth and he gave up his life for you and for me. And this guy says, even for me, a eunuch, yes, for you. You matter to him as well. You know how I know that this would have meant so much to him? Because he's reading in Isaiah 53 and he has this scroll. 3 chapters later, He's reading. By now, Philip's probably gone, in my imagination, right? It doesn't say he reads this. But I'm assuming if he has this scroll of Isaiah, he's getting there. He's a new convert. He only's got to make it 3 chapters till he finds this. Look what he would find. Now imagine a scenario, right? Before we get there. This is where we're ending. So imagine a scenario. You're this Ethiopian. You're this eunuch. You're in pursuit of this God. They deny you access to him because they say you don't fit. You're not good enough. And then Philip comes and says, hey, Jesus thinks you are. Jesus thinks you're enough. And then Philip's gone. You still have this scroll of Isaiah. And you're reading, and 3 chapters later, you read this. Let not the foreigner, think God got his attention? Let not the foreigner who has joined himself to the Lord say, the Lord will surely separate me from his people. That's what they did, right? They separated them. Look what it says next. And let not the eunuch say. Think he got his attention now? He's like, I'm a foreigner. They said I was separated from God, but this is saying I'm not. Then it says, let not the eunuch say, behold, I'm a dry tree. For thus says the Lord to the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths, who choose the things that please me, and hold fast my covenant. I will give in my house and within my walls a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. And the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord to minister to him, to love the name of the Lord and to be his servants. Everyone who keeps the Sabbath and does not profane it and holds fast my covenant. These I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Can you imagine him reading that? Maybe he was denied access to the temple. We're not 100% sure on that. But it certainly looks like it's very possible. And then God sends him Philip on this old dirt road, just passing through. He sends him here. And it's like, this place, God? And so this foreigner, this eunuch, he gets introduced to Jesus. And then 3 chapters later in what he's reading, he says, this is saying that one day your physical status, your ethnicity, it won't matter. Because if you believe in who Jesus is, you will be welcomed in, not into a small temple, but into heaven, a temple that is eternal. Can you imagine being Philip, the joy you would have? Not Philip, Philip also, for bringing it to him. But can you imagine being this eunuch who's reading this? I can just see him weeping. The whole time they excluded me from everything. But not Jesus. In Jesus' eyes, I'm good enough. And so some people live that way. They feel like trash. Some of them don't have parents. Some of them do have parents, and their parents tell them they're trash. It's not uncommon. A lot of people grow up that way. A lot of people grow up feeling like garbage. And then they go out and they live in this world and they're looking for hope inside of this world. And have you seen any? I haven't. And so they're looking for hope and they don't see it. And they feel like an outcast. Look at suicide rates. They're skyrocketing. Look at depression and anxiety and all these things that people suffer from. Look at substance abuse because people, they're running out of hope. And so they're running to all these different corridors looking for it because no matter where they go, they don't feel like they ever fit in. And then this guy, he gets to hear that I know you don't fit in. And I know that people have said you're not good enough. And I know that you don't measure up. And I know that physically you don't qualify. But there is a God who so loved you that came down to this earth. And he bled and he died for you and for me to make all things equal. So that the only thing that separates us from God is no longer the things that we do. Our sin has been taken care of at the cross. And it's a free gift that's offered to us. And you can have it and I can have it. And we can be gospel bearers and we can take it with us as we pass through places. And there's people that you rub shoulders with every single day that are a lot like this eunuch. They feel like garbage. They feel like trash. No one has cared about them. No one loves them. No one treats them the way that they deserve to be treated because they are created in the image of God. And then they meet you. And you can be Philip for them. God, why am I in this weird place? God, why am I at this weird school? God, why am I listening to Pastor Ben yell at me? Why? Why do you have me here, God? Because you have a hope that is living, that is active, that is inside of you. And too many of us are living life trying to get to the next stage of life. And on the way to getting to the next stage of life, we miss that we are all headed and stepping towards eternity. And so where are these people that we're with? Where are they going to go? Your family that you see all the time, where are they going to go? Because if we believe God's word, he says that there's only two places to go. We can go to heaven or we can go to hell. Oh, because they don't measure up. No, because they reject the greatest gift that has ever been offered to anyone. They reject Jesus himself. So where are your neighbors going to go? Where are your friends going to go? Where are your schoolmates going to go? Where are the people in your clubs going to go? Where are the people in your mom's groups going to go? Where are the people that you rub shoulders with every day? Where are the people that while you're just passing through these times in your life, they need hope? And so all of this to say that as you're passing through these different phases of life, and some of them are terrible. I know your guys' stories. I know a lot of you guys' stories. I know some of you have been and are going through absolute travesties. I understand that. I'm not saying that this makes it any easier. But what I am saying is that if we follow the example of the disciples here in Acts 8, that as we are walking through even the worst circumstances, because for Philip, they were trying to take his head. And as he left, he went and he was passing through. And as he did, he brought with him the hope of the gospel. And so if you, in a terrible situation, can point someone and say, hey, I know this is where I'm at. How can you be okay? Because I know ultimately that I am in the hands of my Savior. And he's good. And he is God. I think of Pastor Sam. Pastor Sam was always sharing the gospel with all the people that he was, when he was going through and he was dying of cancer. And did eventually take him. He was literally passing through this time. And I don't understand it. But my wonder and my thought and my brain goes to somewhere along the way, Pastor Sam rubbed shoulders with somebody that otherwise would have never heard or never seen or never got to witness a Christian that sees God in such truth and in such a light that even as he's dying, he can say, hey, there's hope for you. That's what the world needs to see. The world needs to see us, even in our best, but especially at our worst, saying, hey, I know my life isn't what it's supposed to be right now. But I also know that my Redeemer lives. And one day I will see him. And all will be made right. And that world that I wish for now, it'll be there in heaven. And so that's my question for you. As you walk through these circumstances of life, and maybe you're that person. Maybe you are the Ethiopian. And you're here and you're going, I didn't know I mattered. I've never felt like I've mattered. This is what God has done for you. Man, I keep doing it. I'm sorry. This is what God has done for you. He brought you here today to hear this. That you do. That you matter to him. That your eternity, that your life, that who you are as a person, he sees everything going on in your life. And a lot of people feel invisible. But God, he's in pursuit of you today. That's why he has you here today. And for the rest of us that have already met him, and that know this, and know that God has been in hot pursuit of us, and we see our past, and we see what God has brought us out of, or what God has brought us to. The question for you is, who in your life needs to see and feel and be able to watch you live out a life of hope as you declare to them, hey, there's a Jesus who loves you. Let's pray.